Emotional strength isn't about being tough all the time. It's about being steady, self-aware, and resilient in a world that constantly pulls you in different directions. It's not the absence of struggle, it's how you respond to it. And the good news, emotional strength isn't something you're born with, it's built habit by habit. Let's talk about 10 habits that help build real emotional strength. 1. Choose response over reaction. Emotionally strong people don't let the moment control them. They pause, they breathe, they create space between stimulus and response. In that space, they decide who they want to be, not just what they want to do. That's leadership, internal leadership. 2. Practice daily reflection before you go to bed. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? What could I have done better? Strength comes from self-awareness, not self-criticism. Reflection builds clarity, and clarity builds confidence. 3. Say no without guilt. People pleasers are exhausted. The strong learn to say no clearly and kindly. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you choose to open with intention. Your energy is limited. Spend it wisely. 4. Embrace discomfort. Emotional strength isn't about avoiding hard things. It's about leaning into them. Growth lives just outside your comfort zone. Discomfort is the tuition you pay for self-respect. 5. Detach from outcomes. You can control your effort, not the result. Let go of what you can't control. The strong focus on their input, the work, the care, the consistency, not the scoreboard. 6. Speak kindly to yourself. Self-talk matters. The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who've made peace with their inner voice. Encourage yourself like you would a teammate. That's not weakness. That's strategy. 7. Forgive without forgetting your standards. Forgiveness is for you. It releases the emotional weight. But emotional strength also means you remember what you've learned. You don't lower your standards. You raise your awareness. 8. Stay consistent when it's boring. Discipline builds emotional strength faster than intensity. It's easy to be motivated when things are exciting. But the real test is what you do when no one is watching and nothing feels urgent. 9. Ask for help without shame. Emotionally strong people aren't afraid to say, I need support. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. You're not meant to carry everything alone. Resilience grows in connection, not isolation. 10. Focus on values, not emotions. Feelings come and go. Values stay. When your emotions are high, remind yourself of what you stand for. Strength isn't following your feelings, it's choosing your values even when it's hard. Emotional strength is not a trait. It's a choice repeated every day. It's how you show up, how you speak to yourself, how you treat others, and how you stay grounded when the world feels chaotic. These 10 habits don't just build strength, they build character. And character lasts. Faf Keynote's emotional strength is built, not born. It comes from habits, not heroic moments. Responding with intention is more powerful than reacting with emotion. Boundaries protect your energy and allow you to lead your life, not live someone else's. True strength is calm, consistent, and values-driven, not dramatic or reactive. You grow emotionally stronger not by avoiding discomfort, but by facing it with purpose. Emotional strength is built, not born. It comes from habits, not heroic moments. This truth is often misunderstood. People tend to believe that emotional strength is a trait you're either gifted with or forever lacking. They associate it with personality, toughness, or how much hardship someone has endured. But in reality, emotional strength is less about what you've been through and more about how you consistently choose to respond to life. It's a practice, a set of repeatable behaviors. Not something you wake up with, but something you train like a muscle. When people think about emotional strength, they often picture extreme moments. Someone holding themselves together after loss, someone standing firm in the face of criticism, someone stepping up in a crisis. Those are powerful moments, yes, but they don't tell the whole story. What actually allows someone to show up powerfully in those moments is everything they did before that moment ever arrived. It's the everyday decisions, the unseen habits, the mindset rehearsed in silence. The work is done in the ordinary and it shows in the extraordinary. Habits are what make you strong when life throws its curveballs. It's not about becoming emotionless or indifferent. It's about building internal systems that help you stay grounded. For example, a person who regularly reflects on their day, who takes time to understand their emotional triggers and patterns, is training themselves for composure. That habit of reflection becomes the internal compass that guides them when chaos hits. Emotional strength becomes their default, not because they were born calm, but because they practiced it. One of the most common myths is that strength comes from intensity, those big, bold moves. But strength rooted in emotion isn't about big moments. It's about being consistent when things are quiet. It's about showing up with integrity when no one's watching. That kind of strength is slow to build, but impossible to break. Think of someone who exercises emotional boundaries daily, choosing carefully where they place their attention and energy. Over time, that habit builds resilience. That person doesn't get overwhelmed easily, not because they're lucky, but because they've trained themselves to stay in control. Habits also help you avoid emotional fatigue. When you know what your values are, when you have routines that protect your energy, when you surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries, you're less likely to collapse under pressure. You won't need to make big emotional decisions all the time because your habits already point you in the right direction. You've built a structure. You don't have to guess what the right move is. You've practiced it daily. The key to emotional strength is intentionality. People who are emotionally strong are not perfect, and they're certainly not unshakable. but they've trained themselves to bounce back faster. That's the power of habit. If you wait for the tough times to build your emotional toolkit, it's already too late. But if you're practicing daily, choosing gratitude, staying reflective, responding instead of reacting, you'll find that you're not shaken as easily. You're more centered. You have something to lean on when your emotions are heavy. Building emotional strength through habits also creates confidence. Not the loud, boastful kind, but quiet self-trust. You trust yourself to handle life, not because you think it will always go well, but because you've made it a habit to show up the right way. That trust doesn't come from one heroic moment. It comes from small decisions, saying no when you mean no, stepping away from drama, keeping your word to yourself. All of that adds up. It's not flashy. It's not loud. But it's real strength. There's no shortcut here, no life hack, no overnight transformation. The strongest people emotionally are the ones who've decided day after day to build habits that make them steady. They journal, they rest, they say no, they breathe before responding, they forgive, they choose growth even when it's hard. That's where the strength comes from. Not in the moment of battle, but in all the days leading up to it. And that's why emotional strength isn't reserved for a few. Anyone can build it. You just have to be willing to do the work, even when no one's watching. Responding with intention is more powerful than reacting with emotion. It might sound simple, but it's one of the most difficult habits to master. Emotional reactions are fast, impulsive, and often driven by stress, fear, or ego. They're instinctive, like touching a hot stove and pulling your hand back. But human interaction isn't a stove. Life is nuanced. People are complex. And emotional strength isn't built through reaction. It's built through the thoughtful pause that happens before the response. When someone says something hurtful or triggering, our brains are wired to defend, to fire back, or to shut down. It's biological. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for emotional processing, lights up when we feel attacked, threatened, or challenged. That's not weakness, that's survival. But we're not meant to stay in that state. Emotionally strong people train themselves to recognize that moment, take a breath, and choose how they want to show up. That's not instinct. That's discipline. That's intention. Responding with intention requires you to insert space between what happens and what you do next. That space is everything. It's where maturity lives. It's where reflection begins. It's where wisdom gets a voice. And the people who build this habit are the ones who learn to lead themselves and others well. Because when you react out of anger, frustration, or insecurity, you're not really in control. You're being led by your emotions instead of leading through them. Most conflict isn't about what was said. It's about how it was handled. If you look closely at the strongest relationships, the best communicators, and the most respected leaders, you'll notice one thing. They rarely let the moment hijack their response. They think even in tension. They pause even in discomfort. They choose words that align with their values, not just their feelings. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about steering it. It's about steering it. I feel this. But I don't have to act from it. Think about someone cutting you off in traffic. It's easy to honk, yell, or curse under your breath. But then what? You've just handed over your emotional state to a stranger who doesn't even know you exist. The stronger person chooses not to react. They're not weak. They're not passive. They're just intentional. They've trained themselves not to give away their peace so easily. And that principle applies everywhere, not just traffic, but relationships, work, and self-talk. One of the most powerful ways to respond with intention is to become curious in moments of conflict. Instead of assuming the worst, ask what might be going on with them, or is this about me, or something they're dealing with. That shift, however small, creates emotional distance from the heat of the moment. It invites compassion. It allows you to move from being defensive to being deliberate. And that's where strength begins to show. In emotionally intense moments, your response shapes the outcome more than the original event. A harsh word can be disarmed by grace. A mistake can be redirected with accountability. A stressful situation can be calmed by presence. But none of that happens when you react instantly. It happens when you slow down. Emotional strength is rooted in that slowness. It's not a lack of emotion. It's emotional regulation. You still feel, but you don't let the feeling become your behavior. People respond with intention, also protect their long-term goals. If you react emotionally in a meeting, you may lose credibility. If you lash out during an argument, you may damage trust. But if you respond with clarity, you build consistency. And over time, consistency builds influence. Influence built through calm, thoughtful communication lasts far longer than any quick emotional reaction. Responding with intention also helps you maintain your self-respect. In the moment, it might feel good to snap back or speak your mind unfiltered. But later, you'll often feel regret, shame, or frustration. When you respond with intention, you protect yourself from that emotional hangover. You can walk away from difficult situations knowing you stayed true to who you want to be, not just how you felt in that flash of emotion. It takes practice, it takes self-awareness, and it takes repetition. But the more you commit to this habit, the more emotionally strong you become, not because you never feel anything, but because you feel deeply and still choose wisely. The real power lies not in reacting faster, but in responding better. ChatGPT said people pleasers are exhausted. The strong learn to say no clearly and kindly. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you choose to open with intention. Your energy is limited. Spend it wisely. That's the core truth behind emotional strength. It doesn't come from trying to make everyone happy. It comes from knowing who you are, what matters to you, and what you're willing to give your time, focus, and energy to. Saying no isn't rejection, it's alignment. It's choosing what fits your values instead of allowing guilt to run your life. Many people grow up believing that being liked means being agreeable, that if you just say yes often enough, others will respect you, include you, and care for you. But emotional strength isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about being real with everyone, especially yourself. The need to be liked can quietly erode your peace. You agree to things you don't want to do. You say yes when you mean no. You stretch yourself thin to keep others comfortable while betraying your own needs. And then you wonder why you feel tired, resentful, or disconnected. That's not strength. That's slow emotional burnout. Emotionally strong people understand the cost of constantly pleasing others. They recognize that every yes has a consequence. Saying yes to everyone else means saying no to rest, to focus, to priorities, to peace. And more importantly, it means saying no to yourself. Strength isn't selfish, it's selective. It's knowing that not everything deserves your time. You weren't made to be everything for everyone. You were made to be true to yourself. And that means drawing the line when needed. Learning to say no isn't about being harsh. It's about being honest. Emotionally strong people say no with grace. They don't lash out. They don't shut people down, but they don't compromise either. They speak with clarity. I'm not available for that. That doesn't align with what I'm focused on. I'd love to help, but I can't commit right now. These aren't excuses. They're boundaries rooted in self-respect. They don't come from anger or ego. They come from the quiet confidence of someone who knows their value. What most people don't realize is that when you set boundaries, you actually become more trustworthy. People learn that when you say yes, you mean it. Your word carries more weight. You're not just saying yes to avoid discomfort. You're saying yes because it matters to you. That kind of consistency builds real respect. And over time, that respect becomes part of your identity. You're not the person who's always available. You're the person who's solid, grounded, and intentional. It's important to understand that boundaries aren't rejection. They're a form of love. When you tell someone, I can't do that right now, you're honoring both yourself and them. You're not overcommitting and then under-delivering. You're not showing up resentful, half-present, or exhausted. Instead, you're staying whole. And when you do choose to show up, you're able to be fully engaged because you're operating from a place of strength, not sacrifice. It takes courage to say no, especially when you fear disappointing others. But emotional strength is not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act in alignment with your values, even when it's uncomfortable. Saying no gets easier with practice. You start small. You notice when you're saying yes out of guilt. You catch yourself before the words leave your mouth. You pause, you breathe, and you choose the harder but healthier path. Every time you do that, you strengthen your emotional core. And here's what's surprising when you start saying no from a place of confidence. People respect you more, not less. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When you set boundaries, you give others permission to do the same. You create a culture of honesty, of clarity, of mutual respect. You stop enabling unhealthy expectations, and you start building relationships based on truth, not obligation. The emotional weight we carry often comes from the belief that we must always be agreeable. That saying no will make us selfish, cold, or unkind. But emotional strength isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. It's the strength to love yourself enough to protect your energy, your peace, and your purpose. Not every demand deserves your attention. Not every invitation deserves your presence. You're not responsible for everyone's comfort. You're responsible for your own integrity. And sometimes the strongest, kindest thing you can do is say no. Emotional strength isn't about avoiding hard things. It's about leaning into them. Growth lies just outside your comfort zone. Discomfort is the tuition you pay for self-respect. That's the habit most people try to avoid because discomfort feels threatening. It brings uncertainty, fear, and a sense of vulnerability. But in reality, discomfort is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And the people who become emotionally strong aren't those who escape discomfort, but those who learn to engage with it deliberately and consistently. Every time you choose to face what's uncomfortable instead of running from it, you're developing inner stability. Whether it's having a difficult conversation, confronting your own bad habits, setting boundaries that might disappoint someone, or taking the first step toward a goal you feel unqualified for, those moments feel awkward and painful for a reason. Your brain and body are trying to protect you. But real growth doesn't happen in protection, it happens in challenge. Just like a muscle tears and rebuilds stronger under tension, your emotional core gets stronger every time you stretch beyond what's familiar. The illusion is that comfort equals peace. But comfort, when used as a hiding place, becomes a cage. It keeps you in patterns that feel safe but slowly erode your confidence. Emotional strength comes from choosing what's hard now so life becomes easier later, not the other way around. You train yourself to endure stress in small, controlled ways so that when bigger challenges hit, you're not overwhelmed. You've practiced being uncomfortable. You've built that tolerance. You've gained resilience not by avoiding the fire, but by learning how to walk through it without being consumed. Discomfort shows up in many forms. Fear of rejection, Uncertainty in a decision, criticism from others, failure in front of people. These experiences trigger emotional reactions. But when you push through and keep showing up, you start to realize something important. Discomfort doesn't last forever. It feels massive in the moment, but it always passes. What remains is the version of you that didn't run. The version that stood firm, even shaking. That's the version that builds emotional strength. Not the one who always gets it right, but the one who refuses to run. We grow by stepping into conversations we're afraid of, by facing truths we've been avoiding, by admitting when we're wrong, by trying something new and being bad at it for a while. It's messy, it's awkward, but that's the path. The more you expose yourself to controlled doses of discomfort, the more confidence you gain. You don't just survive the uncomfortable, you learn from it. You realize that failure didn't kill you. That rejection wasn't the end. That fear loses its power when you stop letting it dictate your choices. People who build emotional strength have made discomfort a familiar place. They don't love it, but they respect it. They see it as part of the journey, not a detour from it. They trust that the pain of growth is better than the pain of regret. They've developed the emotional maturity to say, this is hard and I'm still doing it. And each time they do, they become more grounded, more clear, more capable. When you consistently lean into discomfort, you also build self-respect. You begin to trust yourself. You've proven that you won't back down when things get tough, that you can rely on yourself to take action even when it's scary. That self-trust becomes a source of calm when life becomes chaotic. It's not arrogance, it's earned confidence. And it's built by walking straight into the moments most people avoid. Avoiding discomfort is easy. You can distract yourself, numb yourself, pretend everything is fine. But that comes at a cost to your potential, your peace, and eventually your identity. You start to forget what you're capable of. You settle, you shrink. And over time, you start to believe that you're not strong, not because it's true, but because you've never tested yourself. Emotional strength is discovered in the testing. And the test is always the same. Will you choose what's hard and meaningful, or what's easy and safe? The habit of leaning into discomfort doesn't mean reckless behavior or constant suffering. It means choosing growth when it would be easier to stay the same. It means doing the thing you don't want to do because you know it's the thing that will make you stronger, wiser, and more whole. And every time you do that, you're not just surviving the discomfort, you're mastering it. You're becoming someone who no longer fears the uncomfortable because you've built the habit of turning toward it, not away. You can control your effort, not the result. Let go of what you can't control. The strong focus on their input, the work, the care, the consistency, not the scoreboard. This is one of the most liberating and emotionally strengthening habits a person can develop. Most people live in a constant state of emotional tension because they're trying to manage things that are outside their control. They want to control outcomes, people's opinions, timing, and even how others interpret their intentions. But emotional strength begins the moment you stop obsessing over outcomes and start showing up fully for the process. There's a difference between caring about results and being controlled by them. Emotionally strong people care deeply. They want to succeed, they want to connect, they want to make progress. But they don't let the result determine their worth or mindset. Instead, they focus on what they can control, their attitude, their discipline, their preparation, and their follow-through. They pour their energy into what's in their hands and they release what isn't. That mindset creates stability. It removes the emotional roller coaster that comes from chasing external validation. You can do everything right and still not get the outcome you hope for. That's reality. You can work hard on a relationship and still face rejection. You can give your best in a project and still get overlooked. You can practice, prepare, and sacrifice and still fall short. That doesn't mean the effort was wasted. It means the outcome wasn't guaranteed. Emotionally strong people understand this, and they don't allow it to make them bitter. Instead, they learn from it, adjust, and keep going. Their sense of progress is based on their consistency, not their applause. Focusing on input over outcome is a form of freedom. When you let go of needing to control every result, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and comparison. You stop measuring yourself by someone else's journey. You stop attaching your self-worth to how things turn out. Instead, you start measuring success by your own integrity. Did I show up fully? Did I give what I had? Did I grow in the process? That's a mindset rooted in responsibility, not ego. It keeps you focused on what actually builds emotional strength, showing up again and again, regardless of the result. This mindset also keeps you grounded during success. When things go well, emotionally strong people don't get arrogant because they know success is never entirely in their control. They celebrate the win, yes, but they stay humble because they're aware that effort is constant and outcomes can fluctuate. They know the real win is becoming the kind of person who keeps showing up with excellence, even when no one is watching and nothing is guaranteed. That's emotional maturity, not getting swept up in highs or crushed by lows, but remaining steady through both. There's also less fear when you focus on the process. When you believe you have to win every time to be valuable, fear paralyzes you. You avoid risk, you fear judgment, and you obsess over results. But when your focus is on effort, fear shrinks. You begin to view failure not as a verdict, but as data. It becomes feedback, not identity. You still care, but you're not crushed. That resilience comes from separating what you do from what you can't control. You find strength in your own work ethic, not an external reaction. This perspective applies to relationships, careers, health, and personal goals. In relationships, you can't control how someone feels about you, but you can control how honestly you communicate and how respectfully you show up. In your career, you can't control the final outcome of every opportunity, but you can control the quality of your work and your willingness to grow. In health, you can't guarantee a perfect body or flawless results, but you can control your habits and commitment. That shift from result-driven to values-driven transforms your emotional life. Emotional strength isn't found in chasing perfection or certainty. It's found in consistently choosing to invest in what matters without being controlled by what you can't predict. It's not apathy, it's presence. It's showing up and doing the work even when you don't know how it will turn out. That's the kind of strength that lasts, because while you can't control the result, you'll always have power over how you show up. And over time, it's not the outcome that shapes you. It's the discipline of giving your best regardless of what comes back. That's what separates the emotionally fragile from the emotionally strong, the ability to focus on input, trust the process, and let go of the rest. Emotional strength isn't about being unshakable or untouched by life's challenges. It's about being intentional, consistent, and grounded in how you live, speak, and show up every day. It's built in small decisions, choosing to respond instead of react, saying no when it protects your peace, embracing discomfort for the sake of growth, and focusing on what you can control while letting go of what you can't. These habits don't make you perfect. They make you prepared. Emotionally strong people are not the ones who never feel pain, fear, or doubt. They're the ones who move forward anyway, with clarity and courage. It's not about never falling. It's about always rising with wisdom. And when you practice these habits daily, you don't just survive life, you lead it.